Alright, November 2020, and this is about keeping it simple. So you would know how much technology has exponentially grown over the last 20 years, or the last 40 years, but I haven't really quite been around that long. But somebody said that the only technology you see advancements in nowadays are computer-related things like VR and large videos, and you don't see new developments in vacuum cleaners and washing machines. Those were the specific examples given. And even back in the 2000s, there was this mental cancer of technology where everything became a pissing contest over who could write the longest code, who could make the biggest files, who could host the biggest files. Like, it was just nonsense. Even in the 2000s when technology was getting some real advancements, people only cared about the rendering and the appearance and large file sizes because that's, well, to use a very crude term that FTM will certainly do in real life, is they're measuring their thingies and having a contest over who has the longest thingy in more ways than one. And that about says everything. I remember RPG Maker 2004. I never made any games on it, but I used it to play Yuminiki, which is ridiculous. I should not have to download, what was it, like 200 megabytes? 500? I can't remember, but I recall at the time, and I always had very bad internet. It was an unnecessarily huge file, and RPG Maker games look like they belong on the Super NES. And real Super NES games, they don't get bigger than 3 megabytes. Like, I think Earthbound and A Link to the Past were in the 1 megabyte each category. Like, I might have to look it up, but these two Super NES games that were full of content were under 4 megabytes each. And Pokemon Gen 1, that was 1 megabyte. Link's Awakening was under 300 kilobytes. These are some classics. So in 2004, because I wanted to play a game that looked like it belonged on a Super NES, I had to download between 200 and 500 megabytes, get a really, really buggy and probably also malware software that my computer has gone, oh, it's got backdoors, watch out. And at some point, RPG Maker just stopped working out of spite or something. It was ridiculous. It should have been a Super NES ROM. There should have been homebrew tools for that sort of a thing. I just wanted to play a little game, you know? And I think, now this is some outdated information, but there's this massive delay in the, I think it was 5th gen, N64 and PS1. I think that's 5th gen. And there was a Nintendo leaks kind of recently, but before that, there was this modding tool for N64 Mario. I think it was called a Toad's tool, and it was notoriously brutally difficult to work with. I heard it was one of the most frustrating things. And yeah, well, after the Nintendo leaks, things are different now, but that's a different thing. And honestly, I don't know much about this. I know very little about, I know what I need to know. I know what not to post, I know what not to touch, and, well, the best way to learn is through trial and error. And I've already ranted so much about industry standards and how they're BS, and how there's this toxic pissing contest over who can make the most bloated BS oversized junk. There's this trend of, well, they're paid shills on YouTube. They're basically Z-list actors that the internet has become television, and that's old news, but like they're showing you their faces when they don't need to because their egos are enormous, and they're surrounded by Funko Pops and plush toys, and that's just pathetic. These people are like 35 and older, and they're surrounded by toys aimed at 6-year-olds or younger, and they're talking about kitty crap, and it's dumb. My main point is, they're not just sitting around surrounded by toys and talking about Mario games. They're doing that at like 60 frames per second in some 12,000 pixel resolution, and that's just ridiculous. And people, for some bizarre reason, think that that's what they should be doing, when no. Okay, I'm talking into a $30 voice recorder, and then I edit, and that's all I have to do. And see, when you just keep it easy, you can put something out very quickly. And I keep saying, don't spend more than an hour on anything unless you really know why you're spending more than an hour. I know time's going faster, but you might have noticed that video playback is also going faster. I don't know how it works. That actually reminds me of something I forgot to mention. So watches use quartz crystals to keep track of time, and there are people that sincerely, genuinely believe that crystals are essentially what you could call physical magical objects, and that the way crystals work, some people say, and they don't say much, is that they can store chaotic energy inside of themselves. I don't know how it works, but that's why people are obsessed with crystals, and they say that to bleach a crystal or to drain it of its stored energy, you leave it in moonlight, and moonlight is cold. Yes, the moonlight is cold, and since that's a negative energy, you know how the sun is a heat lamp? Well, the moon is a cold lamp, and people say that the moon is a hologram, but they don't say that about the sun. But anyway, the sun, the moon, and the morning star, and probably the regular stars are what we see are holograms, and the real ones are on tracks, and I don't know how it works, but I noticed that the morning star behaves exactly like the sun and moon do. It rises at a certain set time or rhythm. It starts off kind of a dim orange, and then it turns white when it heats up. Now, I don't know what you'd call the moon getting up to speed, like when the moon begins to start up, like a light bulb. It's kind of a dim orange, and then it turns white, and then the cold comes out. It's exactly the same way with the sun, except the sun is hot. It just starts off dim orange, and then it turns white. It used to be yellow, but now it's white. And then when it turns white, you feel the heat. And you'll probably notice that the sunrise, what I think might be going on is I think the firmament could be hollow and has an outer and inner wall, and in between those two walls is gas. Maybe the heavenly bodies are between the walls, and they seem to be full of this gas that is electrified, and it takes a few hours for the gas to turn from orange to white. So, and when these things turn off, they dim down, it's like the gas or the juice gets cut to them, and then they just kind of use up what power they have, and then they just go back to wherever they go when they're not being used. It's exactly like a lot of light bulbs. You know how if you have a lot of static electricity on your person and you touch a light bulb, it'll glow, and then you're not carrying static electricity anymore. Anyway, I can't believe that I've already recorded 9 minutes, and I don't have much to say right now. I'm just repeating myself and trying to do what I can. There's only so much I can do, but things are changing. You might say things are becoming more of the same thing to a bigger extent. And that's for good and bad both. What can I really say? Just do whatever you can and keep it simple, keep it short, get creative, think outside the box. If there's an obstacle in your way, find a way around it and talk to people. Just do what little you can to reach out to other people. That's all I can say. Now, I remember the way it was. I remember dial-up. I remember original GeoCities. I remember early 2000s internet, and that's when corporations were starting to take over, and there have always been problems. There are always fake users. There are always bad people, but everyone does say that after 2007, everyone had a strong feeling that the world had changed, and the internet was no longer a side thing. It was front and center of the way things are done, which is wrong, but that's how it is. And it's still only a tool. It might be promoted as a big deal, but I don't think its true functionality has changed. I think that a lot of companies were probably forced to require online job applications. It used to be you could just walk into a store and ask for a job and they wouldn't even check to see if you're over 16. Like, boomers don't get it. They would just go into a store back when America actually manufactured things and not everything was outsourced to China. A 20-year-old boomer would walk in and go, "Give me a job." And he could be 14, but he would say he was 16 or something and nobody would check. He could use a fake name, nobody would check. They could hold several jobs, and the days were longer back then. But it's like the baby boomers specifically were manufactured and tailored to exist at one state of development in America's history. They were manufactured like a product with a limited lifetime. And today, their lifetime is over. They're just zombies. They're addicted to TV. But when they were 20 or 30 years old or younger than that, they were manufactured like products to exist in that place and time and no other place and time. That's why they don't get things today, because they were not they're manufactured. They're P-zombies, and I'm not trying to be childish. P-zombie stands for philosophical zombie, okay, not urine zombie. And anyhow, I don't really have time to get into that because it's already been said. So, back to my main point. I remember when the internet was small and computers could not do a whole lot and everything had to be simple. And to this day, I remember those lessons. I know about exporting tiny files. I know about sharing tiny files. And you should not be uploading large files for any reason. You cannot share things easily. A lot of people have very poor internet. And since I remember the way it was, I know the value of editing. I know the value of exportation. And I do know how to make a basic HTML website if I were needed to. And if you have nothing better to do, you might as well make one. But I know that almost everybody listening to this is useless. But I know a few good people are. And go ahead and do it. Because I know that there are good people out there. And I know that there are people that help. And again, a lot of software is free. It'll work just fine. It won't be the best, but it'll get the job done. For these, I just use Audacity. And if you have to edit images, there's a few options for free image editors that have Levels Tool and other things that are more complicated than MS Paint. Because MS Paint doesn't have Levels Tool, and that's very important. You should have it, because it increases visibility if you need to do that. Anyway, bye. My point about what I forgot to mention about watches is that they use quartz crystals to keep track of time. I don't know how it works, but some people say that you'll notice that watches are a very big symbol of you-know-whats. You know, the kind of delightful people, quote unquote, that love to wear watches. And what is said about this is that watches are magical devices. And now I'm sure everyone's heard that, the phrase that sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I think that there's two layers to that statement. Maybe magic is a physical and mundane thing, because I've heard that electricity is a form of alchemical fire, and that I heard that water is a liquid crystal, which could be true, and that the whole experiments you've done in high school about separating it into flammable gases is canned. That could very well be. I have not verified that. It's possible. And electricity might as well be magic, and maybe magic is a mundane, and computers are magical devices. They are black mirrors. Maybe it's because they work better that way, and some people say that they can do scrying on a deactivated computer screen, but I don't go digging for this stuff, but if I see it, I might repeat what I've seen or heard. So, well, I guess all you can really rely on is your intention. Because you probably heard about that stuff about questioning, if I throw a rock and it ricochets and kills someone, is it my fault? Am I to blame? Well, I'm sure the answer to that question is, what is your intent? Did you intend to have that rock ricochet and hurt someone? Did you intend to press a button and have someone get killed? Intention is everything. And one thing I've learned is that people and animals do have psychic abilities, and intention thoughts are what people and animals will pick up on. I've sensed when an animal is about to pick a fight with another one, and animals have approached me when I was absolutely 100% going to go for a walk. And these are intention thoughts, because I wasn't just lightly pondering about going for a walk. I was absolutely certain I was going to go outside right now and walk, and, then I hear a dog come over. And I don't know how it works, but it does. And crystals exist for a reason. They were certainly formed quickly. I don't know how the original 6 days of creation went down, but the days were bigger back then. And you probably heard about how it was said that people used to hit puberty at age 9 back in the 1800s, but it was said it was due to a harsh lifestyle and people having puberty earlier due to harsh living conditions, but I don't know if that's true. I wasn't there. But time has sped up, and that is absolutely a fact. So a person who turns 13 years old today is not going to be a 13-year-old in the 1800s, because time is different, processes are different. I don't know how it works. I just have to make do with how things are, and sometimes it doesn't quite work out, but what can you do? You just trial and error. So anyway, watches are magical devices that are kind of a secret in plain sight, and magic is probably just some mundane everyday part of life. Come on, electricity is magic. Electricity is magic. The end. When I said the end, that was false because it never ends and there's always a next time. So I'm just going to add that forced blasphemy is getting more and more common. Like, I could just be listening to something kind of casual about some niche topic, and all of a sudden I hear the narrator blaspheme forcibly. It doesn't sound natural. It's stilted and awkward and forced. I hear it. And it has really ramped up. Like 5 years ago, I wasn't hearing forced blasphemy. more and more people are waking up to the reality of Jesus Christ, and he's going to come back soon. And on the third coming, he's going to destroy the world, but we're waiting on the second coming. And think about all of the movies about saving the world from evil aliens, Well, Hollywood is satanic, just like everything else in this world, and they want to save the world because it's theirs. You'll notice that they're obsessed with forcing outer space and alien imagery, and it's always been really forced. And I still think that outer space crap was the most popular in the 60s and 70s, and now it's just forced and nobody cares. It's just shoehorned in out of a forced obligation. And you'll notice, once you know anatomy and biology, that humanoid aliens are ridiculous, for one thing, but inverted Baphomet humanoid aliens, come on, that would not be real. Outer space isn't real. But, even if there were faraway continents with other life forms similar to humans and mammals, they would not be inverted, unless, they too were Baphomet freaks, which, whatever. That's all, hypothetical, and so we don't need to worry about that. But, well, now is the time of division between the sheep and the goats, and once you wake up, what can you really say? It's plain as day and obvious that there is no such thing as an atheist, because open your eyes. There's no such thing as an atheist. Everybody that bashes on Christianity and uses Jesus' name as a swear word, they're inverted. And yep, you can see that with your own eyes. And you might as well now just be very open about your faith in Jesus Christ and stay strong, because you don't have to put up with things for much longer. It's gonna, hopefully for us, end soon, because anybody that wants to preserve their life will lose it, and if you really hate your life, you're gonna find it in Jesus. And we get to live forever. We have immortality. And you'll notice that a lot of really common themes in satanic media is saving the world and achieving immortality through some method other than salvation. So, yep, there's not really much left to say. At this point, I think we're all just repeating ourselves, and if we find anything new, that's the novelty. It's one of those days where I get a bunch of little tiny thoughts, and then I keep dropping them and then picking them back up. Alright, so this world is evil, and it conditions us and lies to us. If you're American, I'm sure you've been told that anybody could become the president if they're, born in the USA and are over the age of 35. Not true. Because they have to be in certain royal bloodlines. Yes, royal. Because what we call the presidents are actually monarchs that are probably from ancient Sumeria. And then you get into this weird stuff about, body doubles and fictional people. Abraham Lincoln was probably not a real person. You could really say that about anybody who's famous, that they're not real people. Adolf Hitler and Walt Disney were played by the same actor. They're both fake. And anyhow, so we're just going to focus on real life. We're told don't judge a book by its cover a million times, and who's telling us that? Baphomet freaks. They are the most sexist and judgmental people. They'll tell you don't be sexist, don't be discriminatory. What do? They treat all real human beings like absolute shit. Nobody is more misogynistic than a Tryhard Martin or a Castrato. It is repulsive how hypocritical they are, but don't you dare judge them. Don't you dare say that they suck. You should say that they suck and watch them flip out. It's great. Even better if you remind them that they don't have souls, that the meltdown is just spectacular. Anyway, that's some fun. Well, we're told that the only way to impress people is to make the biggest pissing contest thing. I use that word so often, but that's all it is, really. Who can paint the biggest painting? Who could write the biggest doorstopper of a book? Who can make the biggest program that's buggy and crashy, and who can make the most BS website that has all of the 20 megabytes of background crap and 10 kilobytes of real content? The true way to leave an impact is in minimalism. Everyone's trying to tell you go bigger, go bigger. No, don't. Go smaller, smaller, smaller. That's the way you should go. Less is more. That is the number one thing I want you to take away from these. Less is more. Minimalism is key. Alright, so next time you make something, take a big black Sharpie and just black out everything that's not completely vital to it, and then whatever is not blacked out, you just use that. Trim it down smaller and smaller. And the more you do something and the more skilled you become, the more minimalistic you become. The more you draw a picture over and over, same composition, the fewer strokes it'll take. Soon you'll be able to do it like in one go with a Sharpie and everyone will know what it is. It can take a while to get to that point though. But, the confidence and the minimalism, those are the things that matter. So never go bigger. Always go smaller, slip through the cracks, fly under the radar.